Hey, good evening, and welcome to Zoom In After Dark. This is kind of unusual for us on a third Thursday night, but we are coming to you with great conversation. And Zoom In After Dark is just a little bit different than Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. And tonight, of course, I'm your host, Donna Gray Banks, and our special guest is Quanita May, who is a marriage and family therapist certified in sex and trauma, certified fitness expert, and is a third level CHEK holistic lifestyle practitioner. Welcome, Quanita, to Zoom In After Dark. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you so much for having me.
And there's
It's a
one
different
thing I wanted to ask you. What is a CHEK holistic life check?
check.
Does that stand for something? Okay.
It's the name of a guy named Paul Chek. So
Okay.
Paul Chek is, and everybody should Google him. He is an absolutely fantastic human being. I sometimes feel like writing him checks just because I feel like writing him checks. Information he gave me approximately 10 years ago. 10 years ago down this road. And the information he gave me was so broad. It was so broad and specific and in depth over a 3-year period that he was just so far ahead of his time in
Right.
nutrition, fitness, movement, spirituality, trauma. He was giving us little bits of information that took in, you know, principles of Raja or from Jung. He was bringing them all into one platform. And he said, all of these parts of a person impact their health.
Mm.
It was everything in your outer world impacted your physical health. And since we were all fitness people, we were learning it from a whole new perspective. As fitness trainers, we usually just work with the training, but he had already tapped into the idea that it's all these other things that are encroaching
That's
on the
holistic. That's everything, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then as I was doing it, I reached a moment. So before I went to the CHEK Institute, so every year I would go for a week or so, they take you to a mountaintop. And this
Ooh,
is the funniest part. Everybody
nice.
is there, and we're in California. So you have a rule, you have to arrive a day early. And when you go back home, you cannot go to work right away because the stress of travel is so much on the body. People don't really account for that when they're on vacation, do they? They just go and come and go
Yeah,
back to work.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we had to commit to an extra day on both sides. So you get there, you have your own private chef, and the private chef is cooking meals just for you based on your metabolic needs. So we don't need the same types of nutrition. So we were trained in each person is so unique, but you have to figure out what's causing disturbances in the body. So I want you to imagine a mom at home. She cooks a meal for everybody, or a dad at home, and he eats what everyone else is eating or she eats it, but that's not what's good for them. At the end of the
Right.
meal, they're exhausted and they're doing this to their bodies over and over again, right? So we
Yeah.
learn that very individualized and very tailored, and then we live that way. The funniest story I have about Paul Chek is that when you get there, you're wearing workout clothes, you wear shorts and a workout top, and you stand in front of him in your shorts and workout top, and he checks to see if you're living the lifestyle. He said he will put a CHEK practitioner against anyone who's a dietitian or nutritionist because we actually have to live the lifestyle. So people say
Wow.
to me, and we do this for 3 years, people say to me, Juanita, why don't you eat this or drink this? So why are you drinking green juice? And it's because I always believe that I am my own billboard. So if I don't look right and I'm telling other people about health, wellness, nutrition,
Right.
like, what sense? Oh, well, yes, I don't drink, I don't smoke. But if you said, oh, she goes partying and clubbing, that would just make no sense from a toxin level in the body, right? So
Right.
I learned to integrate our life into what we do every day. And that's the way I live. And so for me to speak about it, it's very natural. It's very natural to speak about it, right? So that's the CHEK part.
So
Mhm.
how did you decide, first of all, to delve into this? Because these designations take quite a time to get. So let's talk about you deciding to put, with all that you do, to put the time in, because we're talking 5, 6 years. Tell us about that process.
Okay, so I think right now, so I started my fitness lifestyle. I was already a trainer and I was already doing things, already multiply certified and who knows what, lots and lots of
Lots
stuff,
of
and
stuff.
already lots of stuff, not even worth mentioning. Then also professional ballroom dance coach, lots of years there, not even worth it, but I do it, meaning it's not worth talking about. It's just a part of what I do. So I figure from the time I hit maybe 47 or so, 47, 46, because I'm 52 now, I decided that something was missing in the life of my clients. So I would see these married couples, right? They would come for dance training for their wedding. And I was teaching wedding dancing. And I would watch their interaction. And I said, that is just so odd that these two people are choosing to get married because there's some dynamics going on there that are,
Uh,
I mean, this is like an hour of time. I'm imagining that over a years of a lifetime. And that's really odd. And then you try to calm them down. So you're always reading the relationship. When I was teaching dance with couples, I
mhm.
could see somebody was out of sorts with individuals too. I was a dance teacher. My job is not to delve into your personal life. My job is to teach you dance. As a fitness trainer, my job is to teach you fitness, not to delve into your grief. But I was running into clients who had all of these extra things that were encroaching on what I was trying to do with them. I started sending them to therapists. And I realized that the therapist's job was to go in, uncover, as we say, uncover, discover, recover whatever was going on in there. And
And
then they
those
come back to me.
barriers that you speak about were really stopping them from being fit and or
Fit
whatever.
or having good relationship,
Right.
whatever it was. It was like another person was with them the whole time they were doing things, the
Mm.
entire time, right? So I said, okay, let me go to school. So I decided to become a therapist. And now you have licensed mental health, you have social work, you have all these different specialties. How do you choose marriage and family? My theory was you don't live alone, you live with other people.
Yeah.
Every time you speak to
Yeah.
someone, it's an interaction. And every time that you're feeling something, it's in response to something, but you're never living in a world by yourself. And also, some of your most fond memories and some of your worst traumas come from your first systemic encounter, which is in
That's
the family.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So I need to understand the family.
The
So
dynamic.
as a marriage,
Yeah.
yeah, so as a marriage and family therapist, my training is in a single person who comes to see me. But if they're married, I'd like to work with both of you. I don't have to, but I'd like to. And you know what? If there are kids involved and that's appropriate, or maybe I have people to come in with a parent and a child, or maybe it's the parents, maybe it's the grandparents. Maybe I say, you know what? You're all living in one house. Let's have a 5-person session together. And to work in that field, you've got to be able to manage a lot of emotions. You're not just managing one person's emotion, you're sitting and you're containing 5 different emotional states.
Mm.
Things move very quickly, right? So you do 3 years of academic training with that, and then you have a year of internship, a year of practicum. Now you're up to 5 years roughly of education. And
Mm.
that's at a master's level. I already had a master's degree in business marketing. And so this was another 5 years of my life, right? So we do that. And then while I'm taking that, I'm like, well, I'm discovering all these things. I need more information. So I go and I take a program called Prepare Enrich, which helps young couples or couples who want to get married have difficult conversations,
First,
finances, spending
beforehand.
habits, right? So years ago, Donna, you and I met, and I said to you, I believe that people should have a coach or a therapist on one of their first dates.
I believe that.
And everybody thought I was crazy. And I said, no, before I invest time into this, I want to understand, like, what am I walking into? If we're going to go down this road, let's see if it's going to, there are some key things we need to understand about each other. And let's have a guided conversation about it. So
Mm.
that's there and Rich, right? So I do that. Then I realized, well, I really like the marital side of things. And I said, well, why is it that in my program, Marriage and Family Therapy, I thought I had very limited um, academic information on sexuality, sensuality, sexual relationship. So I decided to go to Canada. I spend 8 hours a day for 1 week, a 40-hour training session in Canada with a program called ASEC. And they are the sexuality educators. Blew
Mm.
my the variety of what happens in a sexual world. was new to me, even with my academic training. And so I realized, okay, if couples are going to come to me, they're going to come to me wanting to explore. Maybe they want to learn about this or that. So I went out and I learned about it. But it's a guided training program, and it's all academics. And so I finished that. I said, well, you know what? I'm sort of finishing my training with school. How about I just go ahead in that 2-year program where you have to be registered before you're licensed? Because I'm licensed, I'll just do a year training in sex therapy. So I found a school in Florida. There are 2 of them. One of them does sex therapy up to a PhD level. So in Florida, you have to do 1 year of training, specialized training in sex therapy.
Now that's the program you're in now. You're towards
Well,
your
I got
PhD.
better than that. I did
Okay.
one. I did
Okay.
one. I
Okay.
finished that. I said, oh, this is super
This
sexy.
is fun.
Okay, this is great. I love this, you know, and I could apply it to my marriage and family therapy and my couples. And I could understand some things that were going on in the dynamics. And so then I realized, you know, trauma is huge.
And
Trauma,
any sexuality traumas.
trauma is huge. So
Yes.
trauma in your life, let's look at it like this. You're in a car accident. Your body has a reaction to the impact of the car accident, the sounds. Your limbic system in the brain gets activated. Okay, now when you're glass breaking, you jump. You find that you get tense. You get in the car, you're on the road, and you're tense. You're under pressure. Now you go home and you're trying to become intimate with your partner, but your body is still really wound up and you don't understand why.
Yeah.
Right. So there's this sense that people think there's trauma, it's always sexual. No, I'm dealing with all trauma. Is it sexual trauma? Maybe. Is it family trauma because I received a message from my family that said I was unworthy and I'm not good enough and I'm ashamed of that? And now
Mm-hmm.
that translates to my sexual life, possibly. Right? Is it trauma from work? I'm so stressed out that now when I come home, my cortisol is so high that I cannot actually focus on an intimate experience with my partner? Am I so stressed out that I'm gaining weight? Well, now that I've gained weight, my testosterone levels have dropped. Oh my gosh, now I'm in a metabolic syndrome.
Right.
Okay, now I've got vascular disease. What's going on here? Okay, why can't I perform? So all of these things, they all are traumatic. And there are ways to untie that and help the couple, help the person to understand what's going on. It's not always, sex therapy is not just about sex.
Mm.
It's a component, except in the state of Florida, you have to have specialized training to go down that road. It's called scope of practice, right? So think of it as the trainer can't talk about certain things because they don't have the education for it. They don't have the
Right.
back, they
Right.
do it, right? Then you have the coach can only go so far. So as a trainer, I can only go so far. As a holistic practitioner, I could only go so far. And the next level that allowed me to go into all of it was therapy. And the part that allowed me to go even deeper was being a therapist, marriage and family therapy, along with being a sex therapist, along with being a sex trauma therapist. And then I decided, you know what?
That's not enough.
I might not be enough because I was like, oh, so I found another school in Florida, in South Florida, both in South Florida, and I went into their PhD program. And so now I'm preparing for my oral exams, and then I'll start my dissertation in a particular area. And so if you have any listeners who are like, you know what, this would be a great topic, if they contact you, I would love to know, what do people want to have researched in the area of sex or relationships or gender issues, anything along those lines. Maybe lifestyle choices, but I'm looking for a dissertation topic.
Well,
Yes.
most of people have sexual insecurities,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and most of that falls around body image,
Sure, sure. And so
and
if I were to look at that,
preferences,
I would look at that in terms of cultural issues. I would
right?
say, you know, what messages are you surrounding yourself with? I would actually look at your media. I would say, what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you absorbing? And what are you taking in where there's a comparison between this and this? And when did that start? Because
At
we are,
childhood. It starts at
yeah,
childhood. Yeah.
it's called the wounds of culture. So
Mm-hmm.
it's literally called the wounds of culture, right? And it is
Sounds like a great topic for a PhD.
well, actually, it's been done. One of my
Yeah,
professors
too
has
bad.
done research on how your cultural
Mhm.
history. I'm going to go deeper than that. What
Yeah,
if the reaction you're having is epigenetics? It's not even you. What if way back when, your ancestors had a reaction for whatever reason, for their safety, to things that were red? And now,
yeah.
for whatever reason, 9 generations later,
Definitely
we're
DNA
saying,
trauma. Definitely DNA trauma. Definitely.
okay. And so we actually call that epigenetics, sometimes psychohistory. And so understanding where you come from so that you can say, okay, wait, but that's not real for me. I know that was real for my ancestors. Now they've done research on rats, right? Where for 9 generations, a rat that was trained in a maze to succeed, the memory of the maze is held for 9 generations.
Absolutely.
And now we're not rats, but can we say, I'll give you a simpler example. The anxiety about, here's a good one. Where do people learn to lock their doors and turn off the stove and make sure everything's unplugged before they leave the house? Where do we learn that anxiety?
The security.
Sure, security. It's usually from mom. Mom says, be sure to lock the house.
Mm.
So now what are you learning? If I don't lock the house, there's something bad out there that's going to come in the house. And if you reinforce that with maybe there's a robbery, or maybe you hear that someone else was robbed, now there's something that's been activated. There is a fear brewing, there is an anxiety brewing there. Right now, if mom said something like, okay, we live in a gated community, but I'm just saying this for this reason. Okay, that's different. It's not
Mm.
the same threat. When people watch the news, the anxiety level goes up. But the event is taking place hundreds of miles away, but they're experiencing the anxiety here. I always find that fascinating.
Well, I don't have a TV for just that reason, because I don't have the type of metabolic personality that can take that in on a consistent basis. I can't do it.
Right.
It's
But so
just
you're
not.
aware of yourself.
Oh,
So
oh yeah.
you have
Hmm.
a sense of physical awareness. So think
Right.
about people who have disconnected from their bodies.
Mm.
They have no idea what their bodies are thinking or feeling. They have no connection. There's no mind body connection. This mind body connection we all talk about. I'll give you an example. When you go to the doctor's office, there's something called white coat syndrome. Thinking you're going to the doctor's office will take up your blood pressure.
Yeah, I believe that.
So if the mind can affect the body when it comes to the doctor's office, what would make you think that a basic thought cannot affect your body? Now imagine years of that.
And if you're not if you're not connected to your body in any way, then you miss all the
Signals.
things, yeah, coming in, right?
Absolutely.
You miss
Absolutely.
it. You miss
Absolutely.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
when women tell me I didn't know I was pregnant, I'm thinking, what? How is that possible? But I think that if you are not connected to your body, then you don't really understand what's going on till it's really going on, right? Yeah. But those of us who are, and I'll say this for any woman who's out there, if you're connected, you know within moments of your pregnancy.
There is a feeling, there's an intuition.
Oh my goodness.
It's an
It's
intuition.
it's
And
like something explodes inside your system.
mhm.
And so, and if you know, and the egg is penetrated and it explodes pretty much is what it does, right? And yeah, you're right. People are just not in tune. Why? Because they have so many other things.
Other things going on. So in marriage and family therapy, people come to me, the basic issue is we're having issues with communication. Okay.
Mm,
All right. Well, we can communicate. You have a sender, you have a receiver. Okay. But they're not hearing what I'm saying. Well, what are you saying? What is it they're not hearing? What is it you'd like them to hear? Now, what noise is interfering between what you're saying and what they're getting? So that's basic communication. I go into the emotion. There's an emotion that they're not getting. They're not feeling
mm.
it. They're
In
not feeling.
that communication.
You're saying
Mm,
like, You came home late tonight, and you come late every night. You're never home. And what I'm hearing as a therapist is, I'm lonely, I'm overworked, and I miss my partner. I feel as though my partner doesn't want me.
Right, because you have other things to take up your time and your
That
space.
are more important than I am. Therefore, I am important. And then I get to, I don't matter. Now, this is all from, and you
Right.
can wait.
Well, isn't it just about having a conversation about what you say and how you say it?
Sure. So
And
let's,
thinking about that twice before it comes out. Most people don't do
sure.
that. Yeah.
So there's something called nonviolent communication. I
Mm.
recommend everybody Google it, YouTube it, nonviolent communication. It will teach you how to say things like, what I hear you saying is this. And if I have it wrong, then clarify for me, correct me. But I hear you saying this. And then you go into the emotion under, and it takes training.
Oh
They
yeah.
have training on how to live this way. What I hear, but it's clear. It's very, very clear. So let's talk about what people want to communicate about needs not being met. So, interestingly, I've been doing some research on this. Interestingly, me and my interestingly, right? Um, Sexual communication seems to be a real challenge for people, and
Yes.
saying what they need. And so, I'm going to suggest that I mean, how do I know what I need if I've never tried it with me? How do I know what I need you to do if I don't know what my own body needs? And so the process really begins with understanding what kind of touch you need. Do you need words? Do you need music? Do you need lighting? And then knowing what you need, and then having the ability to communicate this to your partner in a way that they don't receive it as being inadequate or lacking or failing.
It's
And
when they don't receive it and uh this is what you need, that's your preference. That
it's,
comes into a lot of the problems. Once we're in a relationship for a while, and then you say, well, maybe we should try a little bit of this. And they look at you like, what? What are you talking about? Right. So it's your sexual preferences sometimes are not meshed with the
right.
person that you decided to spend the rest of your life.
And so I guess the question for me becomes, do you know what they are? Because some people don't. They have a template, they have a sexual script. This is what they've always done. But the idea that there are other narratives out there, maybe they haven't explored that. And so that is the uncover parts of yourself. Are there other parts of yourself that you want to bring into this equation? Is there a playful part? Is there a strong part? Is there a dreamy part? Is there a princess part? Is there a warrior part? Do you want to bring all of these personalities within you into this interaction, which changes the interaction completely?
That goes back to your first point about conversation, right? I think that finance should be a conversation, how many children you want, whatever those conversations are. But the next conversation is, what is your sexual proclivity that you
Okay.
might have, right? And do you do that? Do you do that then, or most people find out 5 years in that there's a sexual preference that nobody talked about till we're 5 years in?
I want to pull it back. So the
Okay,
hat
go ahead.
that I'm wearing right now is not the hat of therapist, right? The hat I'm wearing is the hat of researcher and student, right? It's an information gathering, sharing session. So in therapy, my approaches are different, but here we're sharing information. So there's something called the Sternberg love triangle. It looks like this. You have pleasure, you have intimacy, and you have commitment. Now, what they've discovered through research is that a good relationship, a healthy one, has a combination of all of those. So I suggest that one of the early dating type things in your little dating coaching session, I advocate, we do a Sternberg love triangle survey. And it goes like this. On a scale of 1 to 10, Miss Donna, are you high on commitment or low on commitment? 5 is, but 10 is, I need commitment. Where are you on commitment?
Mm.
All right, that's 1.
Mm-hmm.
If someone says, I'm a 10, and you're on a date with someone, and they say, I'm a 1, what do you think is going to happen? I'm out, because at a commitment level, I want commitment, and well, you don't. Okay. Pleasure, which is sensuality, sexuality. You know what? Somebody says, I
But
had a
will
sex,
somebody tell the truth about that, about the commitment thing, really, on
and
the
so,
first date? Oh, yes, I'm committed.
so
I've had,
remember, if you do a survey, you each have a piece of paper.
oh, so you still, okay. I get
I'm
it.
on this. I'm on this. Each
Okay.
have a piece of paper, and you're filling out your little questionnaire. Okay. And so yours comes up with the 10 for commitment. The person says it's a 1. You're like, ooh, I am getting some information, right? Okay. We go to another part of the triangle. It's a triangular model. It says pleasure principle, right? Like, where are you on sex? I really like to have sex a couple of times a week, once a week. You know what? I'm good once a month. The person says they're good once a month. You say, well, I really like, twice, 3 times a week. You see the score and you go, wait a minute, once a month versus 3 times a week. Oh, already just on individual pieces, we're not lining up. Intimacy. The person says, on intimacy, I am a 2. I don't really need to be that connected. And you say, you know what? I really need to be, you're a 10. Okay, so you've got a person who's 1 on commitment, 1 on sexuality or sensual pleasure principle, and 1 on intimacy. What does this look like? That's an acquaintance. That's nobody
A
you're going to,
colleague.
like, nobody you're going to connect with, right? But
Right.
let's say we have a relationship where it's a committed relationship, and there's pleasure involved, but there's no intimacy. Now there are 8 different types of intimacy, right? We've got physical, we have emotional, we have intellectual, we have spiritual, we have social, we have bunch. People just do stuff together.
Right.
So anything that you do closely with someone is an intimacy of some sort. The person says, I'm high on commitment and I'm high on pleasure. Intimacy, not so much. What does that look like?
Mm.
Okay. Right. It looks like somebody who you're probably going to have sex with them on a regular basis, and it's going to be good, but don't expect we're going to go to the movies or hang out or talk. But I'm probably going to see you a couple of times a week for sex. Pleasure and okay, what if you have, right, makes sense on the triangle. What if you have high intimacy and high commitment? What does that look like? It looks like a great intimate friendship, a great companion. We are friends for life. We're close for life. We do things for life. These are actually, if 2 people agree that that's where they are, it's a good relationship, right? And then let's take a look at another model. Let's say we have pleasure and we have intimacy, but there's no commitment. What does that look like?
A serial cheater.
Or friends with benefits. Friends with benefits.
Right.
All
Right.
right. And
Yeah.
so research shows, Sternberg triangular love model shows that people have to match up on these little continuums. And
But what's your percentage board, right? What's your price point at this? You know what I mean?
you're trying to match with somebody else. So if someone
Yeah.
else is at a space of a 10 for commitment and you are too, cool. If you're differing on pleasure, that's a little different. So you're trying to always kind of balance these 3 things, but you might find that when you maybe take the survey, you're way off. When you get right down to it, you may like the way the person looks visually, but when you get down to the relational component of, am I looking for love? What type of relationship is this? It's off, or it shows it skews in a certain direction. Okay.
And you can't remake somebody.
I
We always think we can remake someone, right?
mean, we talked
I
about
mean,
truth.
okay, go ahead.
I mean, wouldn't you like to have an opportunity to have a truthful relationship where you meet somebody and you say, look, this is it. This is it. This is who I am. I can grow with you. I can evolve with you, but these are some of my basic features. I want to just share one bit of information because I think it's important. Okay. There are, again, when I do these chats on radio or YouTube, whatever, or Facebook, I always say, this is the last time I get to speak with somebody. And it's the one chance I have to share information. This is what I want them to know. All right, something like this. 2 bits. 1 bit is this: different fighting styles, communication Fighting styles, right? Arguing styles, right? This is based on John Gottman. John Gottman and his wife have done 40 years of research, 40 years of research in fighting styles. Which couples are going to make it? And they can predict it within 5 years, marital success, relational success. And the way they started was they put couples in a room for a weekend and watched them with monitors, video screens, and recorded everything. Then they analyzed all the data. And what they came up with was a couple of things. Key things for this. Couples who are have an argument, a disagreement, and then decide to go to bed and wake up the next morning and act like nothing happened. That is one style. And then we never talk about it again until the next time it happens. And it's going to happen again because we didn't actually resolve the issue. One style. Another style. We argue and then we make mad, passionate love. And every time that we argue, we know we're going to make mad, passionate love. Okay, two people have to agree that that is what they do, right? And you've met couples like that, right?
Yeah.
Right? They're hot, passionate. Okay, that's okay. Then we have another couple that says, look, I don't want to do this. So why don't we figure it out tonight or maybe tomorrow? But let's talk it through. Let's come up with a new way of doing this. And then, okay, that couple tends to not experience that problem in that way again. They'll find another problem or another way. These are 3 relational styles.
What they said nothing about the code of silence.
About the what?
Silence. Just silence. No one talks.
Okay, that's the couple who has a discussion and doesn't go well, and then they go to bed that night and don't talk about it again.
Anyway,
it never happened again. That's couple 1. Okay. What happens if someone in couple 1 goes to therapy, and this can happen, by the way, and decides, I'm no longer taking this approach. I now want to talk about things. What do you think happens to that? Yes. Yes, that was a delicious feeling. What do you think happens to that relationship?
I guess it depends on how the other person receives it, right?
And what if they say, I don't know what this is. We normally just go to bed and then tomorrow it's a new day. And now you want to talk about it. Now we have an issue. All right. Or let's take the couple who likes to fight and then have sex. One person says, I no longer want to have sex after a fight. I want to talk about it. What do you do with that? Right? So these are things that can actually happen in a relationship. And then it's a new relationship on new terms. So I actually believe, and I will tell you this, I do believe that relationships can be renegotiated. I think an anniversary is a great time to sit down with your partner and say, what worked this past year? This worked for me. This didn't work for me. How can we maybe adjust? What do you need? What new needs have come up? Because in a relationship, we're evolving all the time as culture evolves all the time, but we never check in with, do we still both believe this? Is this still our value system? Do I still want this for my personal goals? And as those things change around you, you're impacted by it.
And for women, it's hormonal too. That's a very real thing.
Don't get me
men don't understand.
We could talk about menopause,
right?
And that, there was a time in history where when women lived to be a certain age, they went through menopause and they were burned at the stake.
Right.
As witches, because
for talking back or changing
what was going on.
Yeah,
right. So
exactly.
All of these things that have happened historically to people, and we lose track. We forget, why are we doing this? How did we get here? And we think it's normal. And maybe we're in a place right now where we can create what we need as individuals. Maybe we're at that space. I mean, I don't know, right? So
I remember my grandmother saying, never make an emotional or financial decision if you're in a menopausal state, because 9 times out of 10 it's going to be wrong, right?
So women report being foggy. They feel foggy, right? But we now have great technologies to help with all of these things. And what breaks my heart is that I would recommend that women out there get a YouTube clip called Hot Flash Havoc. And it talks about the research on menopause. And so I really enjoy working with women I love working with women. I love working with men. I love working with couples. But the issues are not, they may start off saying it's communication, but there's more there. It's not just communication. There are other things. So you kind of have to work in different aspects of somebody's life. And for me, it's an honor. It's a sacred honor to have somebody entrust that with me because I handle it very tenderly, very tenderly.
Do you find that religion has
Yeah,
some,
yeah,
aspects to
sure, sure.
how
And I
people, yeah.
so let me say some things along the lines of, let's say that I have a deep religious conviction, but at the same time, I'm strongly attracted to somebody. And
Mm,
act of love, my partner is requesting that we do certain things sexually, but I cannot make my limbic system. Now we're going to the limbic system, the second point. It's
right.
the deepest, oldest part of the brain. It is your reptilian system. It's the system where when you walk in the room, you meet someone and you say, this is dangerous. And sometimes people confuse danger with excitement. He gives me butterflies. When people say that to me, I met a guy and he gave me butterflies. The therapist in me goes,
Mm.
is that butterflies of excitement, or was that
Or
the system saying, be careful, have some fear, have some sense, be
mm,
cautious? Okay. So your limbic system is the one that activates when you are feeling scared, when there's something greater than you, a sense within you that says, watch out. There's something you don't see. And people tend to disregard their limbic system. Oh, that's nothing.
have you seen people, couples come to an impasse? Like, okay, we're going across this bridge, but we're going in different directions.
Yes.
Is not having a good sexual relationship worth ending a relationship?
Okay, so we can either bridge a relationship or we can expand a relationship, right? So bridging looks like this. We try to come together and we try to say, okay, look, what is it you want, sweetie? Okay, I'm willing to try that. And I'm going to throw a phrase out there. It's called a yes, no, maybe list. So look that one up. Yes, no, maybe. And
Mm-hmm.
it's about things that you might want to, try sexually, how far you're willing to go. Yes, yes, yes. No, I'm not interested. Maybe I might try that. You give each other the list and you check to see, oh, she said maybe, or he said maybe to this. Maybe we'll give that a shot. Okay. It's a yes, no, maybe list. Another thing people should do on a date.
Not the first date. We're
You're
not talking about.
not the first date, but you're going to come to your dates prepared with a binder. I'm going to have you prepared.
So let's talk about our seasoned uh, clients,
Sure.
those over 60. Talk about how important it is to continue sexual relationship if they can, if they're, able to, if their health is. How good, how important is that to keep those juices flowing at a certain age?
Okay, so let's just say that we can have sex for many, many, many years into our 80s, okay, into our 80s, into our 90s. Well, what stops us from it is our basic health, knees, back, feet, diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease. Okay, those are the things that stop us from going any further. There's
Mm,
also a sense of the personal message we have. Okay, I'm a woman over 70. Obviously, somebody over 70 should not be having sex. Well, the first problem is we said should. Where did we get that message from? Where do we get that one from? Right? Oh, here's one. A woman who's single over the age of 70. Definitely. I mean, who's going to want her? What if I said to you that there's an entire population of men, younger men, who are deeply attracted to a mature woman? They
mm.
enjoy being around a mature woman, right? So there are all these
How do they say that? I'm not a cougar who likes young men. I'm a cougar that young men like.
ooh, you're the best lines.
What's the difference?
so you have all of these personal restrictions. If you go to church, that's another one. It seems as though when we are over a certain age, we are to become elders in the community and we are to carry ourselves a certain way, but I'm still a person. I'm still a woman. I'm still alive. I'm still healthy. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm alive. Look, everything's working well. And what do you do with that? I'm going to add one more.
Yeah.
If two people are on, if I have one person who has an illness, so part of the reason I love the PhD program is that we discuss disability and sexuality, disability and sexuality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do we do with that? One partner has a car accident and they're young and they're married or they want to get married. Does that mean they no longer have a sexual life? No, they have a vibrant sexual life, actually. We work, this is what I mean by expanding, right? Instead of saying it's a certain way, the expansion is what are the alternate ways that we can get this done? Because we're mutually trying to share something. There's also something called solo sex. There's a huge community of people who, for their own reasons, they prefer having sex by themselves. So they've taken out the other person of the equation.
Mm.
There are all of these ways that if you have a spouse who's died, so imagine this, you have a spouse who's died, but you're still feeling sexually vibrant. What do you do with that? Solo sex? Do you start dating? How do you manage this? So all of these transitional cycles are things that you would come to a marriage and family therapist or a therapist, but specifically a sex therapist, because we're going to be versed in, and these are your options. And we're very comfortable exploring it with you. It doesn't trigger us. We can stay in the conversation with you at whatever level you want to take it to. And we're very relaxed having that conversation, which is the limbic system, right? So we're trained for our limbic system to not get charged. So we can stay with you. And you can tell if you've had therapy or a friend, if they're feeling some kind of way, you can almost feel it and you pull back. And with sex therapy, we're trained to stay in it with the client. Wherever the client wants to go, we're going to go there with them. And sometimes we're the only people they can have this conversation with.
When you have sex therapy, or when you do, I'm not sure whether you're in that right now, with a group of women, right? How do you, what is your technique to let them know that their sexuality is important until they're 85 or 90? And where, how do you get there when you know that you have this religious thing over here, you have the community over here who say that okay, men can date 6 months after their spouse dies or whatever, but a women have to wait a whole year because they were at the well. It is a religious thing, right? You have to wait a whole year. And so how do you break that cycle of saying to them, that was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
We have a today to deal with, right? And how are you going to deal with your today? Living in tomorrow, still at the well in all black,
Sure.
with your beads. I mean, how do you get past
that? I think what I would most likely do with if I had that particular group in front of me, I would try to find out who would be offended by this. Like, who are these people exactly?
Yeah.
Going to say, and what do you think they're going to say? Exactly. And also, how important are they in your life? And if you find that they're very important, then I'm going to go back into a younger version of you, which is called the inner aspects method. And I'm going to ask, okay, now which part of you is scared of this? Oh, it's a part of you that doesn't like to be judged. Okay, well, when did
that matter
that
one way or
start?
the other?
Oh,
Right.
that started when I was 15
Yeah.
years old. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, maybe we need to go there first. Let's first work with the 15-year-old and let's get that 15-year-old, which is really your sense of gender role confusion and identity. Like, who am I? What am I? What are my boundaries? Between the age of 12 and let's say 17, and that's in Erickson. Look up Erickson stages of development. I would say, which stage do I think my client is in that it's that part of themselves that is feeling some sort of way? And then I would do some work with that. And you're going to find that it's going to be between the ages of birth, roughly 19. You're going to find that those years are super important. And some of those things are popping up when I'm 60. The
Yeah.
not knowing who I want, the not knowing what my role was, the not knowing, oh, I can change roles, the ability to withstand scrutiny. Maybe that comes from that particular age. What are your boundaries? Where do you stand? Does that make sense? So,
You have a question here. It says, why get a PhD in clinical psychology and why the model works?
right. Okay. So,
Let's unpack that.
sure. So, you asked me for some questions to put it in context for your
Yes.
listeners. So, why a PhD? I am a curious person, which is probably why I enjoy therapy. For me, if I can bring everything, I want to bring all parts of me and all parts of all the best information and research that's out there to my therapy session. If I have to tell my client, look, because of a health condition, I think this type of exercise would help your lower back, which might help you in your sexual performance. Okay, let's do that. If I say, oh, my client has a pelvic floor prolapse, something's gone in the pelvic floor. Hey, let's find your pelvic floor specialist. They're going to be doing it. I want to give my clients, when they walk in the door, the best information, the best therapeutic techniques, the newest things out there, because my goal is for them to get to where they want to be. So that would necessarily, for me, mean get more education.
How do you feel about Tantra therapy? Is it
Yeah.
Tantra?
It's something called shamanic tantra. So
Shamanic Tantra. Tell me about that.
there is a fantastic coach, one of my professors actually. Her name is Francesca Gentile, Gentile. And she is known throughout the world. All right. And she calls it Tantra. She even says it.
Tantra. Tantra.
Yeah, Tantra. Um, it's and it's sacred. It's a sacred way of connecting, coming to your own source, connecting with the source of someone else. It is breath work. It is breath work that controls the limbic system, that allows you to open yourself and connect to another person. It is a spiritual practice that is awakening for people. And so here's the thing, once you've had, even now in this conversation, we know we're having an intensely connected conversation.
Right.
So imagine leaving this conversation and then going to speak to somebody who's not a connected one. Like, what does that feel like? Yeah, exactly. It feels like a letdown. It
Yeah.
feels surface. And so imagine if your sexual union, imagine if your spiritual union, imagine not even sexual, imagine if your communication union felt like that all the time. That would be great. You would feel relaxed and at ease, and you would feel safe. Your limbic system would be deactivated. And this is part of the Tantra practice. So a lot of things come up for people during sex that they're unaware of. So I'm going to give you one more researcher, Esther Perel. Look her up, Perell. She does anthropological cultural research on intimacy and relationships. And what she says, the question, she's all over YouTube. So again, it's Esther Perel. It was John Gottman, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's called CHEK. And then it was Sternberg, the Sternberg love triangle. So Esther Perel.
Hot flash something.
Hot Flash Havoc. Fantastic. Women, it will change your life. Let me tell you now, it will change your life. So, Esther Perel says, why is it that we always say, what are you going to do to turn me on? What are you going to do? But no one ever asks the question, what do I do to turn me on? What if my turn on has nothing to do with you? What if within my own mind, it's called your sexual response cycle? What if it's complex? So earlier on, Masters and Johnson said that the sex cycle started off with excitement, it went to plateau, it went to orgasm, it went to resolution. It was a 4-step sex cycle. Masters and Johnson, huge movie, Netflix, right?
Right.
Well, now we've discovered it's way more complex. What if it starts with desire? And what if desire is a thought? And so what if your desires initiate your arousal process, and what if at any time you can flip out of the sex cycle back into a thought? And what if that happens, it puts the brakes on. right? And so now the sex cycle isn't linear. It was a linear cycle. Now it's a circular cycle, right? Where A to B to C to D, maybe back to A, maybe back to D, maybe we take a little break, maybe I do a little breathing, maybe I come back in.
Do
That's
you
a
find it that the sexual traumas and differences are between ethnicities are pretty much the same regardless, or do you believe that
it's
just for a moment that maybe melanated Black women, right, have a a stronger push against being their whole sexual self?
yes. So I remember when I was in school. I remember when I was in school, I was blown away by something. It was an idea. And the idea was that Black therapists, right, fall into one of three categories. And this was done in a research paper. And the categories were the mammy type. She was going to be a caretaker, caregiver, larger frame woman. So clients would walk into an office, see a larger person, and put all of these messages onto the person. They weren't true, but they
Right.
just did it. They just did it. Okay. Then there was Sapphire, and she was the outspoken, we're gonna just fight the power. Okay. If she had, let's say, more natural hair, maybe she wore like an African, if she just wore African clothing, if she was, and the client would put this onto the therapist. Then there was Jezebel. Jezebel was a lighter complected person who they highly sexualized. So the therapist is doing their therapy work, not realizing that the client is projecting all of these images onto the therapist and then hearing what the therapist is saying through that lens.
Mm,
And so these are just some stereotypes that exist out
yeah.
there. Also, the idea that for me, it's age. It's definitely an age thing. You
Mm.
know, I mean, I look at you and I say to you, when I see you all the time in person, Miss Donna Banks really does look this fabulous. Okay. I say, you look beautiful. You look fantastic. But there are all of these projections of, okay, now what does that mean? What does that mean in certain groups?
Right. What does that mean?
What does that mean in certain groups? And so people have to get to a space of, what does it mean for me? I know what it
Yeah.
means. Actually, I don't know what it means for you, but I know what it means for me.
Okay, Miss Quanita May, as the sun sets behind you, I need it's a
I have,
beautiful
you know
location.
what? I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm going to tell you why. Because my school says to me, as part of my PhD program, I have to be open to professing, speaking about and educating people on various aspects of what we do as sex therapists. And eventually, a year or so from now, it'll be a clinical sexology PhD. But we actually work in the medical field. So imagine people who have cancer and their spouses.
Right? Are you going to do a private practice? Are you going to do just referral
No, I'm in
or
private
okay,
practice. I'm
okay,
actually in private practice. People can contact me. They
okay.
can contact me through you. They can find me. I'm also online. I'm also on Psychology Today. And I'm in private practice right now. I'm also more than happy to be invited. If you have groups of women who want to get together,
Yes.
both want to get together, I am more than happy to come and speak about some topics and talk about intimacy and what the newest research is and how we can build intimacy as well. Intimacy can be built and developed.
Be nice to have exotic food and sexuality and conversation, right?
I would love it. Anytime you say
Wouldn't
that,
that be
let me
great?
know.
Yes,
I'm the
yes,
person for that.
yes.
Thank you so much. I have
Oh,
enjoyed.
thank you. Thank you so much, Juanita, for being on Zoom In After Dark. And thank you, everybody, to our audience. As always, when the lights go down and the cell phone towers are out, all you have left is a flashlight and a good book. Thank you. Good night.